So with the daughters, like me, I'm Rouz, Neva, Rubasha. Okay, that is what you're saying.
Exactly.
So you're saying, so if you have,
if I have, let's say, 2 daughters,
yeah,
my last name doesn't continue.
So the last name Sujira.
No.
Rubasha.
What's my last name?
You say, oh, your middle name is Sujira. That's
yeah,
going
but
to be
no one remembers me by my middle name.
Your wife is going to be Mrs. Sujira, not Rubasha. I'm the only Mrs. Rubasha in this house, and Emmanuel's wife. So we're only going to be 2 Mrs. Rubashas in this house.
No, my wife will be Rubasha.
No.
Are you serious?
So listen, your Eve Sujira Rubasha.
Okay.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Your wife is going to be Mrs. Sujira.
How?
Ian is Ian Neva Rubasha. You know, using your dad's name, that's his dad's name. So Ian's wife is going to be Mrs. Neva. And I think Ian is the only one with the other nephews who their wives are Mrs. Neva. All these people calling themselves Mrs. Neva, my brother's wife, that is not their names. So,
but that doesn't make sense. I'm confused.
Okay.
As if, so, because Sujira is my middle name. On my passport, it says middle name. So my surname is Rubasha.
Okay, so that is Australian way. So what I mean is, so your name, so Eve Sujira Rubasha, okay? So you're Eve Sujira.
That's my middle name.
Yeah, so that you'll never understand it. But technically you're Eve Sujira. Okay?
Okay.
That your dad's last name is Rubasha. So that is why you're using that, because that is your dad's name. But technically you're Eve Sujira. So your wife should be Mrs. Sujira. Okay. You see, okay, I'll give you an example. Like my brothers.
Their wives. What are their last names?
It's John Muchuma Neva. So his wife should be Mrs. Muchuma, not Neva.
So, like, for his wife is not Neva?
I don't know if they call themselves, but that technically, that is how it should be. So it should be John Muchuma. His names are John Muchuma Neva. That's his dad's name. His wife should be Mrs. Muchuma, because that's his wife. Joseph is called Joseph Dunda Neva. His wife should be Mrs. Ndunde, not Neva.
Really?
Yes. Please drop your comments below. Anyone who's listening to this, and let me know if I'm speaking facts.
So those second names, so you say John Muchuma.
Yeah.
Muchuma was the name of your granddad.
Yeah. So that is John. That is now he was named after my grandfather.
So my great granddad, his name's Muchuma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So your dad gave his dad's the last name as a middle name.
Yes.
And then his surname is Neva.
So Neva. So that is just because when you're growing up, so your first last name, it's John Neva, Joseph Neva, Rose Neva, because those are your last names, because you have to use your surnames, right?
Exactly.
You have to use your surname. However, when you get a wife, she can't be Mrs. Neva is your dad's name. Neva is John Neva's dad's name. Rubasha is Aloys's name. It's not your name. Your name is Sujira. So your wife should be Mrs. Sujira, not Mrs. Rubasha. But the only Mrs. Rubasha is me here, and Emmanuel, because he only has 2 names, Emmanuel Rubasha, his wife would be Mrs. Rubasha. That's where the name keeps going.
Really?
Yes.
So
drop your comments below and let's hear.
But okay,
guys, Fanatics is the #1 online retailer when it comes to merchandise, when it comes to drip. You know, I'm one of those people, when I walk into the building, I want to stand out. I know my aura, my presence, my energy, and my drip is going to be the one that's going to pull me apart from the lot. You can be that person too. It all starts with your fashion sense. It all starts with the way you present yourself. And Fanatics, they're just them guys, man, especially when it comes to supporting your favorite team or just looking fly. This is a lifestyle and it's a mentality. Guys, there is discounts every single day. That's the best thing. That's why we've partnered up with Fanatics for a really long time. I'm very passionate about something like this. And to be able to look good and fly is always a privilege. So go click that link in the bio. Now let's get back to the video.
Is that in Kenya? How it works in Kenya, or how does it work in Australia?
In Australia, I don't know. I'm telling you about Kenya and where I come from, my culture.
Does that mean we have to follow that code? Yeah.
It's up to you, guys.
So okay, so you're telling me my wife would be named Sujira.
Yeah,
so
Mrs.
like
Sujira.
So then what my kids
Letitia Sujira.
So my kids, their surname will be Sujira.
Yes.
And then when they have kids, or they have a wife, their wife will be, what about, no, I'll just name them Sujira so they keep my last name.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful name. That is a very, I remember someone telling the aircraft, if Sujira was like, that's a beautiful name. It sounds famous,
Really?
Yeah.
So
Somebody told me that.
my grandma gave me that name. What did you
Yes.
say? Really?
Long live.
When did she give it?
When I had, so the story was when I had Ian, I was expecting a girl. Because when I had Ian, I was expecting a girl. I got Ian. Then when I had you, I was expecting a girl. Then I got you. Then I said, this time, you guys name Eve. So your dad named you Eve, French. That was his friend. I think he was killed in the genocide, Eve. And then your grandmother said, that respect I had, I would have named you anything. I called her in Rwanda and said, what can we call? And then she said, call him Sujira. Long live.
Sujira.
Yeah,
So
Sujira
you called it.
Yeah. So that's the culture where I come from. That is you're Sujira. So for me, I am Rouz Niva. My middle name is actually Inyanji. Rouz Inyanji Niva.
And
When I was single.
Okay. So when you were single, your name was Rouz Inyanji
Niva.
So Inyanji is the name of your grandmother.
That's correct. My Muchuma's wife. You see, Muchuma is my dad's dad, right? Was my dad's dad. His wife was Inyanji. That's why my dad never called me Inyanji. He always called me Mama, because I was named after his mom.
So, so your grandfather,
Yeah.
right? His wife was Inyanji.
Yes.
So your dad, Jonathan, named you Inyanji.
Yes.
So
naming is very big for us. So when I was single, I was Rouz Inyanji Niva. When I got married, I dropped Inyanji to keep my father's name identity for me. So now that's why on my passport ID, I'm Rouz Niva Rubasha.
Rouz Niva. So the Inyanji is gone because you take you said
I want to keep my dad's name.
you keep your dad's
That's my
last name.
identity.
So now Ian's kids will keep the Niva name.
Yes, so it's Ian's kids who will actually keep the Niva name because it's called Ian Niva Rubasha.
So as long as he
This video is sponsored by Eve Rubash's Patreon.
doesn't give them a middle name like they do in Kenya,
Yeah.
it'll always be Niva.
So it will be
Niva.
so
All
he
his
can
kids will
keep.
be Niva.
Yes, he will keep the Niva name.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Because
crazy.
he was named after my dad.
Did you ever meet your grandparents?
Yes.
Both sides?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk.
So I never met my Coco grandma. Coco means grandma. I never met my Coco Inyanji. She was struck by lightning, so she died.
Oh, so you never met
No.
Coco Inyanji.
Yeah,
How
but
old was she?
I can't remember, but that is when she had just given birth. My uncle Wines was 4 months old, and then she was struck by lightning, and that is was it by Uncle Wines, because before my dad, Niva means if God wishes. Niva.
If God wishes.
Yeah, if God wishes. So my grandmother was falling pregnant, and every time she
Inyanji.
had Inyanji, the pregnancies would she would have what do they call it when you lose pregnancies? So she would lose the pregnancies. So when my dad
Miscarriage.
Thank you. Miscarriage. So when she fell pregnant with my dad, she said, if God wishes, let me keep this child. And for sure, God listened to her wish. And that's why my dad is called Niva. So in Luya, we say, Niba Nyasaye na yanza.
What does that mean?
If God wishes.
If God, because of her miscarriages, she
Yes.
said, if God wishes. And
Yeah. So
that
Niva
was
means
him.
Niva means if God wishes.